Hi, welcome to this Stylist edition of Matters.
Hi, everyone. How are you?
Today's topics are going to cover the greeting and also asking for referrals.
Two of our favorite topics, and both can make a huge impact on the listener.
As we talk about greeting, we want you to put yourself in a position that you meet people your entire life. This isn't just the greeting that takes place in the front of the salon. This is when you meet and greet potential team members, staff members, when you meet guests, when you meet people out in public, whether it be friends, associates, potential clients. It could just be somebody in line at a movie theater that you meet.
Also, how you carry yourself with your banker, or when you're meeting with your accountant and you're doing business and you're around other professionals. I think our industry's gotten a little bit too casual in the greeting. And every class that we teach, we struggle with this topic. Our audiences do, because they don't like it.
Well, I think they don't like it because I do think we're casual with it. I think that we as an industry, we take so much for granted. We think we're people, and what's the big deal? In 5 minutes, we're going to be talking about probably things we shouldn't talk about. And so we think that we have this closeness. A friend of mine has always said that it's a friendly business, but your guests are not your friends. They're paying for your time. And subsequently, think about the greeting of other business professionals. Think about your doctor's greeting, or a greeting from an attorney, or a greeting from a person in a professional field, perhaps someone in insurance that you're meeting for the first time. All of those are formal greetings that say, our time together is beginning.
Well, think about your time with Mr. Kaplan.
Sure. Mr. Kaplan is our corporate attorney. He's someone that I have known for probably 25 years, easy. And our meeting would never, ever start without that formal side of a handshake. That's the beginning. That's when I know, first of all, he's going to start billing me for the time.
Yes, he's the only one that calls me Mrs. Cowan. Mrs. Cowan, good morning. Yes.
Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the mind frame that we want you all in as we get started. That we do want to take the greeting seriously. To some of you, it's going to seem like maybe we're overblowing this a little bit. We're making a bigger deal out of this than what it is. But please stay with us on this and know that it really isn't a bigger deal. Your words, the way you carry yourself, the way you present yourself, the way you meet and greet people, are the ways that you interview for the future that you want to have.
How did you learn how to do a handshake?
As most of you know, I'm third generation in the salon industry. And when I was a kid, as a way of being closer to my dad, I would go out in the field when he would go out selling to salons. And I was probably 6 or 7 years old, and I was traipsing into a salon after him. And he was taking care of business in the salon, and I had met the salon owner, and he came over and sat down with me, and he said to me at the time, he said, "Young man, you're going to meet a lot of people in your lifetime. I can tell." And he said, "People will judge you based on your handshake, and it's important that you know how to shake hands well." And he extended his hand, and he said, "I want you to shake my hand," and I did. And he told me all of the elements that were important in a handshake so that people would think better of me in that situation. And he told me the importance of being in the moment and looking the person that you're meeting in the eye. And for a little kid, I mean, if you've shaken hands with a lot of little kids, the hardest thing for them to do is to look an adult in the eye when they're shaking hands. You can coax them into shaking hands, but very rarely, unless they're really trained and rehearsed, do we look someone in the eye. And
well, isn't that funny? That carries right into adulthood.
It does.
There's many people that we shake hands with that can't look us in the eye.
Absolutely.
I remember I want you to talk about the elements, but I remember being at the signature gathering, Paul Mitchell's yearly celebration. And that year we were speaking, so we were part of the receiving line as the guests were arriving. And 2,000 people walked through. Our industry professionals walking through and shaking hands with the receiving line. And I was absolutely blown away by the lack of confidence and the amount of people that didn't want to shake hands or poorly shook hands and poor eye contact. And I thought, oh my gosh, we should stop the whole thing right now and start doing a class right here in the receiving line. And I was appalled at the women, especially, maybe because I am one, but I thought, come on, ladies, carry yourself better, be proud, stand up, shake hands, look people in the eye, and be thrilled to do it. This is what the beauty industry and the people business is all about. Were you amazed at that? I was. I couldn't believe it.
I remember that night specifically because I really believe that our industry needs some of those red carpet moments. And I think that each year at Signature Gathering, that is the equivalent of a red carpet moment. Mm-hmm. It's when we celebrate the art and the craft of hairdressing and being a hairdresser and being in beauty and fashion. And I was particularly surprised because certainly everyone that was walking in dressed the part. The fashion side was right.
Oh, yes.
So if you wanted to say the packaging, that was right. And people looked great. They were there to celebrate. Doesn't that happen in salons? Don't we sometimes look great as a salon? The equipment, the decor, everything is tastefully done. I was just in a beautiful new salon in downtown Chicago on Friday, and the colors just worked so well together. The art was, I think, perfect to my taste. I was very comfortable in that salon. It was beautiful. Salons do that all the time. The packaging, the way it meets the eye visually is just fine. The way our hairdressers meet people visually is just fine. However, are we prepared with anything to say? Do we know what to say? Do we know how to be in that moment when it presents itself? Because everybody we meet, we can either draw into our business as a guest, or we can draw into our profession as wanting to do what we do because of having a contagious energy about us. Mm-hmm. And I think back to that moment at Signature Gathering. And
I remember nudging you the whole time.
Oh, yeah, blown
and saying,
away.
This is just unbelievable.
And you know what? If everybody listening to this thinks about when you meet and greet people, you cannot help but make a judgment call.
Yes.
Might not be right, but when you shake someone's hand...
You might change your mind later
yes,
of your first impression.
When you shake someone's hand, you're making a judgment call. And I remember thinking, oh my God, these two that I shook hands with were sad. These two were mad. These two don't like people. These two... and
these two I want to be girlfriends with.
Absolutely. And it goes on and on and on.
Mm-hmm. And then Stephanie walked through.
And oh my God.
It's over at that point.
Yes. So I think that was a great example to bring in, Terry, because it really etched something in both of our minds at that time, because we always think that hairdressers are the ultimate people. But it has a lot to do with meeting. There are people... There are guests who will not give you a chance if the greeting isn't proper.
Well, we've had classes where people have said, yeah, I'm not very good at the greeting, but when they get in my chair, I really shine. Well, guess what? You really ruined the guest's first impression of you. Or warm-up time. Do you have any friends where warm-up time is really long? You're great with them, but that first 5 minutes or 10 minutes and you think, oh, please hurry up.
It's like starting over.
This is awful.
It's like a brand new
like you've never
friendship
met before. Again. And the warm-up time is really long, and then you're comfortable. In business, unfortunately, people don't want to be uncomfortable anytime they're spending money. So therefore, even though you might be great once you're in, that first 5 or 10 minutes is a little weak, and it needs a little help. All right, let's get back to the elements that you spoke of earlier with the gentleman in the salon.
Sure. Some of the things that he said was, first of all, eye contact was important. Being present in the moment is important. And I know that sounds crazy, but there's a lot of times, and I even have to fight through this because I'm thinking about the conversation that we're going to have or going beyond just that initial meeting. If you're one of those that can't remember the name of the person that you just shook hands with, you probably weren't as fully in the moment as you needed to be. So it's slow things down. Know what you're going to say so that you don't have the additional pressure of making that up as you go. Know what you're going to say in advance. We think that it works best when your body and your shoulders are square to the person that you're going to be meeting. You can shake hands with someone you're sitting next to, or you can shake hands when you're shoulder to shoulder with someone, but then you're each reaching across your bodies and it just doesn't work as well. It's not as open. When my shoulders are square to your shoulders, it means that we're both open in that moment and meeting someone. We reach out, we take that person's hand. Now, for lack of a better term, that fleshy area in between your thumb and your first finger, let's call it a web. The web of your hand should meet the web of the other person's hand. And then the degree of firmness. The handshakes that we have trouble with are either handshakes where we don't have the person's full hand. Sometimes you get just the fingers of someone, not the full hand where it's web to web. And another bad impression is a very weak handshake. And another bad handshake is the one that wants to bring you to your knees because they've got such a squeeze on your hand that you're not sure you'll ever be able to write again.
The one I don't like is the elbow that doesn't move. Instead of going the locked elbow, that one's a hard one for me. Or the one that they take the elbow up like a boomerang into the air. The elbow's up in the air versus just straight out.
That it's
one
like an airplane coming in for a landing.
Boom. I never know how to do that one because then it locks my wrist up and then I'm crooked. So I don't like those. I don't like bad handshakes.
Handshakes matter.
Yes, they do.
Imagine that.
Handshakes matter.
So this is something that most of us can think of a handshake that we've had that's been less than pleasurable or that's been bad or that we've judged someone on as a result of that handshake. But how often have you shaken hands with someone else and asked them for their feedback? Ask them how your handshake feels to them. In our classes, we have an opportunity to demonstrate that and do that live. So you're going to have to take a big, giant leap of faith outside of this CD if you're going to do that with another human being. At the same time, it's going to be a bit silly and a bit funny, and you can get nothing out of it if people don't really tell you what your handshake feels like. Many people during that exercise either need to firm up their handshake a little bit, or they need to make better eye contact, or they need to square their shoulders, whatever the case may be.
They have to loosen up sometimes.
Just loosen up. Be in the moment. Now, here's the other thing. What energy do you bring into that handshake? I've had firm enough handshakes and proper handshakes with people with good eye contact, but I think, oh my God, is that person going to stay awake through my service? You just look and you don't see any energy. This has the potential to be the spark that ignites a fabulous time between you and your guest while they're in the salon.
You know, we've been doing a lot of flying lately, and we were on Southwest Airlines. And I remember, I think we were flying to California, and they had oversold the flight. So they said, can we take a couple volunteers to take a flight 4 hours later? So you and I decided to get off that flight and get some reward miles and reward dollars for doing so. The staff there was absolutely fabulous. The young lady behind the counter, her name was Tricia, and her first impression from the moment we said hello till after she was done with her shift, walking away from the counter, made eye contact with us again to say goodbye, her energy was absolutely contagious. We enjoyed her so very much. Now, we have also did some international travel and flew on United Airlines. Or no, I'm sorry, American. No personality whatsoever at the counter. Didn't even look up. Energy really low. And then you think, gosh, what a contrast. And all of that, a handshake didn't take place. Just words and eye contact. And two opposite sides of the scale. One saying, I'm inviting you in and let's play. And the other one saying, I can't wait, I hate this, and this is awful. So I think about, what does a salon do? Now, Southwest has said, you know what, there's many industries out there that take themselves too seriously. We're going to fly. Safety is going to be our number one priority. I lost my train of thought. But safety is going to be our number one priority, but we're going to have fun during the process. So we've got salons that are very stuffy, which is fine. And then you've got salons that are going to have a lot of fun. The beauty of the beauty industry is all goes and all fits, but the customer has to be part of that. And a greeting, just setting up on what can I expect from this experience today. The greeting and the staff's reception, it plays a huge part.
Well, listening to you talk, Terry, I thought back to something that came up in a class that we did recently. And there's a ice cream shop called Cold Stone Creamery. One of their points of difference, one of their advantages, is when you walk into their business, when your hand hits the door and you open the door and walk in, they've taught teenagers, because you don't see anybody over 21 in the whole business, they've taught teenagers to look up from what they're doing and say, "Hi, welcome to Cold Stone." Every single time, every single guest. While you're in there, they probably do that 20 or more times as more guests walk into their thing. They've made it a point of difference to look up, be friendly, and say hello. Imagine that in a business.
No, they don't do that at Dairy Queen.
They don't do it in, well, any other ice cream shop. They don't do that in most other businesses. Walmart made a big deal out of hiring senior citizens to be greeters when you walk into a Walmart. They stand there, they look at you, they smile, and they say hello, welcome to Walmart. It's amazing that some of these companies are establishing themselves with a point of difference by their greeting.
Now, what do we see in salons sometimes?
Missed opportunities. Win Claybaugh says that with every person that we pass in public, with every person that we pass in a business, we should think of it as pass or fail. Pass or fail. We either connected, we either took advantage of that moment, and we made a connection with that person.
Or impression.
And left an impression, or we didn't. And if we didn't, we failed. And that happens all day long. It happens all day long. And gosh, another thing that Wynn says is that when you got in the beauty business, you gave up the right to have a bad day. Our business is solely about people. It's solely about being on, and we're on stage the whole time. So it starts in the front of the salon with the proper greeting. Elements of a proper greeting in the salon is, first of all, that the front of the salon be prepared for every guest, each and every guest. And it's every team member's responsibility for the way the front of that salon looks, and the way it sounds, and the way it smells, and the way it feels. Tom Peters says that you can feel the electricity in a business that's working just when you walk through the door. And you know what? We can too in salons. We can feel when it's right. Your guest can feel when it's right, and they can feel when it's wrong. And so if you can't feel it, gosh, they say that when you're doing something right, the guest has to get in. They've got to be part of it. We've got to let them in. And so what are some of the negatives maybe that take place in the front of the salon that we need to make sure are gone or eliminated?
Congregating, improper dialogue, talking about topics that shouldn't be on stage for everybody to listen, whether it be, is my 10 o'clock highlight here? Have you called my guest to tell him I'm going to be 15 minutes late all day long? Did my last guest leave a tip?
Exactly. And talk about gratuities. Talk about what we did last night. That's the congregating. When you put together a group of staff, a lot of times the conversation is going to go to personal things, and the guest will act interested and listen in. However, it's not what they're there for. It's just not what they're there for, and it taints their view of the service experience. Because everybody's got stuff. Your staff, you as a group of staff, can talk about your stuff, the things that are crazy in your life. Well, your guest has things that are crazy in their life too. They don't really want to hear yours. They'll listen, but they'll just be glad it's not them. So how do we keep this in a professional setting that when they walk in, they feel like they're in great hands?
Let's give them some examples of dialogue. If it's a guest that's walking through the door and I'm part of the front desk team, and I might say, "Mrs. Jones, hi, we've been expecting you." What a great thing to say, because we're looking right up. She knows, ooh, that means they're also probably prepared for me. Not, "Hi, your name please," especially with an established customer. If you recognize their face, let your dialogue say that. You might not know their name by heart, but you recognize, "Nice to see you again," means I recognize you. I remember in California at JP's wedding, and Ed Begley Jr. was there. And you looked up and you said, "Nice to see you again, Ed." And Ed probably thought,
I'd just seen him a few months earlier at a celebrity function, and it really was nice to see him again.
But Ed probably thought, what, did I see him? Was he just at that golf outing I was at yesterday?
I'm certain he was more memorable to me than I was to him.
I'm certain of it. Absolutely and vaguely. So every time we see him on TV, we say, "Nice to see you again, Ed." It's very funny. Between us, yes. Move on, Steve.
Okay. So dialogue again, when we're welcoming a guest coming in, I think it is important to say, "It's good to see you again. Welcome back.
Welcome back.
We've been expecting you." There's lots of little dialogue, even if you don't recognize them or by name. When you check them in at the front desk, you have the opportunity, if it's a returning guest, to say, "Welcome back." Your words are what set the table for a successful and enjoyable visit by the guest that day.
Now, also, even if it's not your guest,
It's your guest.
it's your guest.
Absolutely.
So if I look up and see, oh, Lillian's here, but that's Mary's customer, I still need to say, "Lillian, nice to see you again."
Why?
Because the customer wants to be surrounded by recognizable faces. They want and should have multiple relationships in the salon. It gives them a sense of belonging, and it creates business connection. And that's exactly what you want to happen. What were you going to add to that?
In a service business, connection's everything.
Sure it is.
And every personal contact is a moment of truth. Every time a person from the staff comes in contact with a guest anywhere in the business, it's a moment of truth. It's a chance to look up, acknowledge them, and move on. I mean, that doesn't mean you have to stop and have a cup of coffee with them, but certainly that they feel welcome is important.
I can remember being in the restaurant industry and the service providers. We would spend, at one time, most of our emphasis was on the waiters and waitresses, the wait staff. And then we said, wow, we're missing a golden opportunity. Yes, the wait staff spends the most time with the customer, but the support staff, whether it's the bartenders, the cocktail waitresses, the busboys and the hostesses. I mean, busboys in general are very quiet people moving about the business. They're just working, but very little relationship is built with the customer. When we decided, let's let them be part of the service too, by saying, yes, you may clear a dinner entree plate, or you might say, I would recommend the cheesecake tonight. It was amazing how much more they felt a part of the business. Sometimes
So,
even...
Terry, how would you relate that to the salon?
Well, I think sometimes what I see is it's all about my customers, my relationship. Don't interfere with that. And I think the customer expects more and wants more, and I think we're kidding ourselves if we think they don't. So the cleansing technician, the front desk staff, the other divisions of what the customer might not be enjoying those services yet, but they could be. But all if they're made to feel more comfortable, will they probably explore more options in the salon?
So an example where maybe it's one of my guests that's walking through the salon and you pass them. What are some of the things that you could say that would...
Mrs. Jones, nice to see you again. I'm on my way back. I'll let Steve know that you've arrived. That way, first of all, I
You
recognize
didn't recommend the cheesecake or anything?
Smothered in strawberries. Yes, 2 doors down on the left-hand side. I think what you have to say is, the biggest thing is I want Mrs. Jones to know that I know her too, and also that I have a relationship with her service provider, and I'm going to let her know that you've arrived, or him know that you've arrived, and I'm going to go back there and announce you. That just creates a whole lot of great thoughts for the customer in their mind about the place that they're doing business with.
7 out of 10 guests leave one salon and go to another, not because of high price, not because of bad haircut or bad color, but 7 out of 10 leave one salon and go to another because they didn't feel important. That is a person-to-person thing. That is a lack of connection thing. People feel important where they feel connected. No different than the old Cheers thing, go to a place where everybody knows your name.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the salon environment. That's the profession that we've chosen. And that's, to me, what's the most fun, because you've got your 200 guests, and if you're in a salon where everyone has 200 guests in their customer base, you might be able to really know thousands of people within the community by name, and that's fun. So the front area has to be prepared. It sounds professional because it sounds like a business that's working. You've got front desk staff, reservationists, concierge staff that is there to facilitate the guests' movements in the salon and to welcome them and have them want for nothing while they're there. That's really what the front desk staff is there for, and they're there to check in and check out the guest as well. When it comes time for you to go up and meet and greet that guest, we again think it's important that you shake hands. That's the official beginning. It's important that you script what your dialogue is. And if it were me, there would probably be at least three greetings that I would have scripted to meet a guest and let them know that we're beginning the service.
Okay, let's hear them. What would be your three?
One of the greetings would simply be, "Hi, Terry, welcome to our salon. I've been looking forward to our time together today. I want you to know that all of us here are committed to lifelong relationships. It's really important that we exceed your expectation today. Let's get started."
Oh, what happens if someone says, "I could never say that"?
That's okay. I think that you should write and then rehearse and then make yours what is yours. I think of Gino's greeting, which is, "Hi, welcome to Eclipse. All of us at Eclipse are committed to excellence." That's short. It's sweet. What a great thing. Everybody here at the salon is committed to excellence. It sets a standard. I can't be committed to excellence and then go back to my station and talk two hairdressers over about their new car and ignore my guest. That's not going to happen if I'm committed to excellence. And so, again, our words are what allow us to rehearse for our future. And I think that how we meet and greet a guest, I think if you're looking forward to them, if you've been looking forward to them, you can say it. I think that if you genuinely enjoy them, you can say it.
Yes, you can say, "I'm so excited you're here today," or "I was thrilled to know that you'd be here today." I think that's wonderful.
I couldn't wait to get to this part of my day. It's so
That's
good to
great.
see you. But let it be something of purpose. Let it be something relatively quick. And then it also eases into what you're going to talk about as you're going back to your station.
Well, we talk about scripting a lot, and we still believe that people will rehearse and practice and have to be in a corner privately to put a message on their cell phone for their voicemail. And who cares on that? People that are phoning you there aren't contributing to your livelihood. Yet, we don't want to script what we do in business. I love when you say that the true professional has to be willing, in his search for greatness, to be willing to be uncomfortable with their words in this industry, as they were willing to be uncomfortable with their hands while they were learning their technical expertise. And I think that's fabulous, because dialogue is really what connects people. We are our conversation. And people will judge us by the hello, by the goodbye, and what's in between. And if we're not working on that continuously, we're giving room for someone else to come in and take our customer away from us.
So that's the greeting inside the salon. The greeting outside the salon, when we meet people in public.
Doesn't it happen all the time when people say, "What do we do?" Even to us, and we're distributors. What do you do? We're in the beauty industry. "Oh, don't look at my hair now. Don't look at my hair."
Sure.
Or, "Where do you go? I'm looking for a salon. Where should I go?"
Or what should I be using?
Right.
It happens all the time. So how is it that we're going to approach this when we're out in public? How is it that we're going to meet people and invite them into our business? I really think in America it's a lost art asking people for their business. I don't think it comes naturally. I don't think people do it well. And I think it's just because we haven't had to. So much has come to us in America really so easily. When I talk with my friend John McCormick and you look at his key performers that have done so well, he employs several hundred hairdressers. And his best performers are people who are foreigners, people who came here, first generation American born, or they weren't born here in America. They're people that arrived on our shores with the American dream and are willing to work and hustle and be uncomfortable and grow, because it's bigger than that to them. It's bigger than that. So how can we do that? Not that we want anybody to have to endure the hardship of coming across the water and learning a new language and being immersed in all of that. The American dream while it wasn't born here, it arrived here. I think that we can all get our arms around it. And part of getting our arms around it is learning how to ask people for business. Terry, we talk all the time about the fact that it only takes between 200 and 240 guests to be fully scheduled behind the chair. Fully scheduled behind the chair.
If you're working full-time.
If you're working full-time, 38 to 40 hours a week. Now, if it's that small a number, why is it that so many people get burned up, get burned out, and leave our business, or come in, are technically brilliant, but can't be successful behind the chair?
Because they don't know how to entertain a customer.
Right. It has to do with their words. It has to do with everything that's not technical. It does have to do with how they meet and greet. It does have to do with how they connect. It does have to do with their dialogue. It does have to do with how they make a guest feel important while they're in their chair. It absolutely has to do with having a servant's heart.
Mm-hmm.
And how we accomplish those things are going to determine how quickly we build to 200 or 240 guests, to how quickly we can have the six-figure type of income that most people say and will raise their hand and say, I want to have that six-figure income. There are people, we've met many people in our business that have it, but many more people don't have it and leave our business discouraged and disgruntled. It happens in little 30 to 60-minute increments, little bite-sized portions of our profession.
Well, and I think that owners that are listening to this Stylist edition also, we need to really be honest with people. If they cannot entertain and they cannot carry on a conversation with someone that is meaningful and someone wants to and enjoys someone else's presence, we have to be honest and help them with that. There is nothing worse than a dull service provider. So therefore, if we're giving people customers and they're technically brilliant, but people aren't returning, the reason is because of the service provider, period. It's not that it was too cold in the salon or we didn't have the right towels or she didn't give me a great haircut, because the owner already said you're technically certified to do this haircut. It means the person didn't know how to entertain. Their words were wrong. Their hour was miserable. I don't want to do that again. I didn't enjoy my service provider. Basically, that's what that means.
So, it starts with the ability to invite people in. Once our salon owner says we're technically capable, and we have gone through what it is we're going to do and say once the guest comes through the door. So it's revisiting all the steps of the service and making sure that our dialogue is in place. But once we know that we can escort a guest through our salon properly and achieve our top two objectives, which is create a repeat guest and provide a salon experience, once that system's in place, then all we have to do is meet and talk to and invite in as many people as we possibly can.
And enjoy it.
Yeah,
we have to enjoy the customer. I mean, if people are struggling out there saying, you know what, they're talking about me. I'm good, but no one comes back. Well, maybe you need to go get some books on how to carry on meaningful conversations. Hopefully there's books out there. I'm sure there is. I'm sure that there's people that are saying, I don't know what to talk about. I guess I look at conversations with people as, what are the easiest conversations for me to have? And why are those easy? And what elements in those conversations could I bring into the ones that I'm uncomfortable in? For example, if I think about conversations with my best friend, why are those so easy? What do we talk about? Now, be careful. I'm not saying to have those same conversations with your customer, but why are those conversations much more easy and comfortable for you with a stranger?
Well, Terry, as our conversation went this direction, I thought to a book that both of us have just completed, and it's about Cirque du Soleil. Part of the reason why I was drawn to this book in the first place was that Cirque du Soleil is a very creative, intense environment, much like the salon industry. It's a bunch of people who see themselves as artists. Mm-hmm. So does our salon industry see themselves as artists. Yet
the book is called The Spark.
It's called The Spark. And it's written by Lynn Hayward, Heward, and John Bacon. But what's interesting is here is this person in the book who meets a person from Cirque du Soleil for the first time. And typically, like we all meet, it says, "What kind of work do you do that brings you to Las Vegas?" And he answered point blank, "I'm a sports agent." She said, "You don't seem overly thrilled about that." And he said, "Well, at first I loved it. Working with the athletes, the talent as we call them, was exciting. I was jetting off to cities all over the country, searching for the next NBA All-Star, NFL quarterback, baseball Hall of Famer. But somewhere along the line, my work started feeling less like a calling and more like a plain old job." Isn't it amazing that that was communicated by the way he said, "I'm a sports agent"? And she picked up on it and said, "You don't seem overly thrilled about your job." And then he explained it further. He wasn't overly thrilled about his job. It went from being a calling, something that he was passionate about, to something that was a plain old job. What draws me to this industry is that it's never, ever been a plain old job for me. The people I get excited about, the people I want to spend time around, are the people that it is a calling, that it is a passion, that it's not a plain old job. Yet sometimes what comes out of our mouths is plain old job kind of stuff. And so if we're getting plain old job results, we've got to change the way things come out of our mouth. We've got to change the passion and the enthusiasm and the way we communicate what we do with other people. This was clearly in this book a walk away from the beauty industry, but boy, to me, the whole book told me such a story. It could have been written about a hairdresser. It could have been written about any beauty professional, any service provider that had fallen out of touch with why they do what they do. And if you have fallen out of touch, it comes across right from the very beginning in your greeting. So bringing that home to the salon industry, you're out in public and someone says, "So what do you do?" Just like the lady did in the book to the gentleman. Your response is everything. Is it, "I'm a hairdresser"? And could that person look back and say, "Doesn't sound like you're very excited about that"? Just like we don't often get feedback on our handshake, probably less frequently do we get feedback on how we sound when we talk about what we do.
That's a perfect point.
And so because we don't get feedback on it, though, doesn't mean it's not important. It doesn't mean that, I guess the ultimate feedback is your results. How many new guests a week are you bringing in based on your reputation to the business? Referrals. How many new guests are coming in because of you? Those are people typically that we meet in public. So the response we talk about inside PSCNet all the time is that I'm a hairdresser and I work at such and such a salon where I have the pleasure of altering what's 70% of someone's first impression. In our salon, we're geared at the family or at the professional or anyone really, that the added confidence that comes from looking and feeling their best is important. We'd love to welcome you into our salon. I'd love to do your hair. How we talk about what we do, and again, you may be saying, "I couldn't use those words." And that's fine, as long as the words you're using are effective and they speak the passion and they connect with why you became a hairdresser and people can feel that. I always have kind of put it on my shoulders that when you're trying to say something meaningful, you have to look into the eyes of the people and see if you see that twinkle. If what you're saying isn't putting a twinkle in people's eyes, change something. You got to say it differently. Because I really believe that your intention is to put a twinkle in their eye. Your intention is to draw them in. Your intention is to let them feel like, "Oh my God, I got to be going there. What a cool place. Let me in. What do I have to do to become your guest?" And if we're not having that response, I would say change something. Write it out, write it out, write it out. Ask your significant other, ask your partner in life, "How does this sound? How does this sound? How does this sound?" Ask your guest that's been coming to you for years, "If I said this to you, how would that seem to you? Would that sound right? Is that how it sounds to have me as your service provider? Because I'm passionate about this business, I want to grow."
I think you say, "Does that get you or is it flat? Does it say something? Don't just tell me what you think I want to hear. Tell me what I need to hear." There's a big difference there.
There's a part late in this book where they're kind of summing everything up. And the gentleman who was a sports agent was talking to someone else within the Cirque du Soleil environment. This was actually a clown that would study the audience as they came in, and he would determine who he would play with prior to the presentation. And so he had to be a good reader of people to know who would play and who wouldn't. And in this particular example, the first gentleman that he went up and tried to play with wouldn't engage at all, just shut him down completely. And then he found another person who would, and they had a ball. And the guy who was a sports agent, in asking him questions afterwards, was trying to figure out, God, didn't that feel terrible to find the person who wouldn't play with you? And he went on to say, you know what, that guy thought I was trying to make a fool out of him, but really, I'm trying to make a fool out of myself. I just need somebody else's help. And the key element in that is trust. And the first guy wouldn't trust me, and the second guy did trust me. But what he said to him after this is, he said, it's never my failures that I regret. It's the things I pass up because I'm too scared or too safe. And I think that that kind of draws a summary to this. How many times have we been either too safe, specifically, in the front of a salon with the way we greet people? How many times have we been too scared to try new words, to try something new, to try different ways to connect with a guest, been too scared to make eye contact with and meet and greet that person out in public? And because of it, it's kept us from being as successful as we want to be. The whole purpose of these Matter CDs is to it certainly is to inspire you. It certainly is to reestablish a twinkle in your eye. But it's definitely to try and nudge you out of your comfort zone a little bit, to fall deeper in love with the beauty industry, to be more passionate about guest services, and to be more passionate about your own future. Because the people who are draw us in a huge way. So, are we ready to move on to referrals?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Terry.
I think so. I think when you look at referrals, most salons do not ask you to build up your business all by yourself.
True.
Most salons will assist you in the process. They might give you a limited time, which you and I endorse, which we think is good business. You know, we're going to help build your chair up for this amount of time because we can't go unlimited amount of time because we want to build up other people as well. But during this time, we know that if you do it right and you keep the customers that we jumpstart you with, they're going to tell more people and they're going to tell more people. So this opportunity for success could happen quite quickly. Your number one priority during the building of your chair or nail station or spa room is to create a repeat customer. Now, once again, the salon's going to jumpstart you. But you then, because of your extraordinary service, will create layers of customers off of the base that they gave you. So this goal of getting to 240 or 250 customers quickly can be done quite easily. But you have to nudge your customers and let them know that that's what you're asking of them. You're asking of them to refer friends and family, just like them, to you. You don't want to do this one customer at a time by the salon building your chair. You want to create traffic in your chair by creating layers of customers from the ones that were given to you originally. We see it happen all the time, but you have to generate the conversation. Once again, the dialogue. Very simply, it's not about a contest. It's not about who can bring in the most people and we'll let you win a bike or have a free weekend downtown with all expenses paid. It's about finding the customers that you want in your chair, but you have to ask for the business. Remember, Steve said earlier, it's a lost art. What we say is the most sincere compliment that you could pay to me in this salon is to recommend your friends and family to us. Period. That's all you say. And you look people straight in the eye and let them know. We've had hairdressers say to us, I don't want people to think we're desperate. You're not desperate. You're just asking for business. It's a good business conversation. we don't want people to think we're begging for business. My comeback to that always is, if businesses weren't asking for business every single minute of the day, there wouldn't be commercials on TV. That's people asking for business. Drive this car, eat this Dorito, come to McDonald's, go to Starbucks. That's what it's all about. So people are asking for business all the time. Funny thing is, most salons are not. So you create a commercial for your salon through your words.
My general rule of thumb is if McDonald's and Coca-Cola can advertise and ask for new customers and ask for more business, then I think salons can too, and hairdressers can too. And what a difference in the power. They have to put a TV ad on, or a radio ad, or a print media ad, and hope that it's something that catches us. We have a 30 to 45 to 60-minute opportunity to touch and connect with people. And at the end of that, to ask them to go out and recommend us to their friends and family as our method of new guests.
Go back and think about the last book that you read, or perhaps the last movie that you saw, or the last pair of jeans you purchased, or even a neighborhood that's building up with a new developer. Usually, you are nudged by other people that have enjoyed that prior too. My husband and I saw this movie last night. You have to see it. I just completed this book. What a great read. You need to read it. There's a new developer going back there. Oh, boy, their service is outstanding, and the amenities that they're offering are outstanding. They're relying on the community involvement to build up their businesses. We're just not doing it enough. We feel uncomfortable. And I'm telling you, the most successful hairdressers are the ones that aren't uncomfortable with this at all.
If you recall from previous Matters topics, we believe that there are 3 quality control checks that take place at the end of every visit. This is one of the 3. Asking for referrals is one of the 3. Rescheduling is another, and take-home recommendation are another. If none of those 3 things are honored by your guest before they leave, if you've got a guest that never sends you in new guests, if you've got a guest who never takes your recommendation for take-home products, or a guest that never reschedules their next appointment,
they're not happy with your salon.
We left something on the table. Yeah, they're not happy. They're one of those people that got one-to-one. They came in for a haircut, they got a haircut, but we didn't provide a salon experience for them. And they're what we call an at-risk guest. That's a guest who will go somewhere else if they feel like they're going to get better service. Our goal as a service provider is to create guests who are raving fans, guests who are blown away by the service experience they have in our salon. And there's lots of little ways that we do that, but just like there are ways that you check your work technically, these 3 things are ways that we check our work for if we've created a salon experience and if we have, in fact, created a repeat guest.
Raving Fans is a great book by Ken Blanchard. Easy read. You can find a whole series on customer service. But Raving Fans, for any of you that want to start reading and say, you know what, this is where I'm slipping. I'm not keeping all the customers that I'm giving, and my customer count isn't increasing, you need to read this book. It would be a great read for you.
Sure. The whole premise is that a satisfied guest is not good enough. That many times we've been satisfied in one company and we've left that company. We've left them as a customer when we're a customer of them. And our guest leaves us all day long. Gino says all the time, how'd you like to have every guest you've ever laid your hands on still coming to you? And the reality, he can say that because we do turn over many guests. People leave us and go somewhere else.
A raving fan has to talk about what they experienced with other people. They have to. They can't keep their mouth shut.
And there are little service gems that take place throughout that 30 to 60 minutes that stimulate conversation. That's what creates a raving fan, whether it be the wash house experience, the lather lounge, whether it be our color bar, whether it be the way that we talk about and feature take-home in our retail theater. These are all little ways that differentiate our salon, differentiate service with you as a service provider from any other salon or spa that people have ever been to. If we don't pay special attention to those moments throughout the steps of the service, we're not going to create a raving fan. And what I like about this idea of asking for referrals specifically, other than the fact that it teaches us to ask for business, what I like about it most is that if I know at the end of this I'm going to ask you to send friends and family,
I'm going to perform at a better level.
I've got to be at my best today. I can't be flat. I can't give you just raw bottom line service, a basic haircut, and ask you to send me your friends and family. It just doesn't fit. And so if I know I've got these 3 quality control checks and I'm absolutely dependent on them, it calls me to a higher sense of service and a better detail with you as a guest.
It's a great message today.
Thank you so much for your time. I know that the majority of our time was spent on greeting. The last thing I want to say on referrals is kind of where Terry started, that referrals are not about a freebie program. Please don't wait for your salon owner to come up with a referral contest before you start asking guests for friends and family.
We really believe that if a salon is doing things right, they never have to put a contest in place.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening. Here's a couple of afterthoughts. In our conversation after the recording stopped, we were talking about how matter-of-factly we take the responsibility of service providers knowing their teammates' guests, kind of reaching out to and helping assist any of our teammates' guests, and why that's important and what's in it for you if you do reach out to one of your fellow stylists or service providers' guests. Why I think it's important, first of all, to the guest, is people stay where they feel more connected, and the more relationships they have inside the salon and spa, the better it's going to be for their longevity. That guest is going to stay in the salon and spa longer because they know more people. That's really what's in it. They feel more important because they know more people. What's in it for you as a service provider? We honestly believe that many things can happen as a result of that. Let's just take a few. First of all, I want to be memorable as a service provider. And if I am the smiling face, the person that's meeting and greeting, the person that's willing to be there all out for all of the customers that they can touch, is going to be a person that's more memorable in the salon. We're in a business that's largely made up of women. We're in a business that is sometimes transient, where stylists leave, service providers leave and go to another state. They leave and have families, or they leave due to illness. And if I know that person's guests, they're more likely to come to me than they are to go somewhere else down the street. So it's a positive. The third thing is that if the stylist that they're seeing, or the service provider they're seeing, is fully scheduled and no longer taking guests, they can still feel free to recommend their friends and family to our salon, and specifically to me, because I've made an effort with them as a guest. And that effort is memorable. Terry, anything?
No, I think the same thing. I want to be a recognizable face. Just in case, I don't want them to say, well, who would you recommend? I want it to be obvious that I'm there for them should something arise that you no longer, as their key service provider, can take care of them. Also, it just raises the level of who we are as a profession. It raises that we all are here for your satisfaction. The customer doesn't have a dedicated service provider that's only there for them. This whole salon is here to make sure you have an extraordinary experience. And how you say that, you could have a sign posted saying that, but to act that way and to have the service provider staff look out and say, we're all here for your comfort. One of the main reasons you do that, just like if you walk into someone's home and you're the guest of someone and all the kids walk by and not one of the kids say hello because you're not their guest that night. You'd stop and say, hello, excuse me, Mr. and Mrs. Jones are here. Would you say hello to them tonight? Oh, hi, and walk out. It's almost like I want to embarrass the staff and say, could you say hello to the other customers too? We've learned those manners growing up, but sometimes we don't live out those things in the business world.
I think back to the example we gave earlier about Cold Stone. And I think back to teaching 18-year-old kids, basically, to look up from what they're doing and say, hi, welcome to Cold Stone, because it's part of their job, because it's part of the culture that exists inside that business. And until you can get that culture inside a salon, don't wait for that to happen. Be that change.
Yeah, you can start
Be the
creating it
person
on
that
your
makes that happen by looking up, by taking every opportunity. I'm not saying that you leave your guest while you're working to go meet and greet every person that comes in the salon.
But as you're walking through the salon, are you a pass or fail as you're walking
Absolutely.
through?
Pass or fail. Did I connect with you? Did you see the smile in my eyes? Did you feel the welcome in my tone of voice as we walk through? Okay, just a little bit additional, a little bit of review on dialogue for the referral. The dialogue that we found to be the best and what we recommend is the greatest compliment that you could pay to me in our salon would be to recommend your friends and family. We're always looking for new business. That fits with us. We believe that everybody should be on a 365-day-a-year campaign
I was going to say that.
for looking for new guests.
Okay.
And Terry, I have such a mental block because that's the way I would say it. How else would you say it?
Being a professional in the industry, I'm always looking for new customers. And you are a great guest of mine. And if you know anyone that's just like you, would you please refer my services to them? I'd be thrilled to take care of them.
Wonderful. You know, there is a truth to that. People hang around with people that are very similar to themselves. I think it is important that the guests that you enjoy, be sure that you ask them. The guests that you don't enjoy, they probably got people just like them. So,
Please don't send them.
yeah, don't ask them for referrals. We're coming to the close of our afterthoughts. We're very, very grateful for the time that you spend with us in each one of these issues that matters. We are very passionate, very serious about wanting to make a difference in your career.
This was a fun issue. I liked it.
We enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Take care, everyone.